Allison Russell, welcome to Australian Musician.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
You're coming to Australia in April next year, playing Bluesfest and some other shows with Jason Isbell. Have you been to Australia before?
I have been once before. It was many years ago with my very first baby band, a group called Po Girl. We called ourselves Canadian North American roots music. And we went to the Woodford Folk Festival eons ago, 2007, I believe it was. And we did a little tour just after that festival with a gentleman who goes by That One Guy. And we went to Katoomba and we went to Melbourne. And I believe we went to Sydney as well. And it was so lovely. But it's the only time I've been. And so this will be my first time coming with my solo project. And I'm so excited. I've been hearing about Bluesfest for so many years, and I've wanted to just attend for so many years. So to get to play it is really such an honor.
Yeah. You said solo. You're just playing solo. You're not bringing any band.
Oh no, the project is under my name. It's the first, Outside Child is the first album that I've released under my own name. I've been a professional musician for nearly 20 years. The first Pogo records came out in June of 2003. So next June it will be 20 years since my first baby band's first record. But Outside Child, which was released in 2021, that is my first solo project. But absolutely not. I'm never performing alone. I always have a wonderful rainbow coalition of brilliant artists with me, and that will be the case when I come to Bluesfest as well.
Tell me about the ladies that you'll be performing with.
Well, that's a great question. I think we're still trying to figure out the lineup for Australia, but most likely it will be Joy Clark on acoustic guitar, Elena Canlas on keys, and most likely Elizabeth Pupil-Walker on percussion. And of course, they all sing gorgeously as well. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun, lots of harmonies and we're going to have a great time. We're just really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So how will you approach your set list for a tour like this? Is it something you do beforehand, or do you do it on the day?
The set list changes every day for me. I'm not an artist who does one set for a whole tour. I have a lot of material to draw on from the most recent record, Outside Child, but I will also be previewing some songs from the upcoming record, which will be coming out in September of 2023. And of course, there's just a lot of material with Our Native Daughters and my previous groups, Birds of Chicago and Po Girl. And I will still sometimes draw on that back catalog, and every now and then we'll throw in a cover. And we love to collaborate. So you never know. There might end up being some collaborations with at the Jason Isbell show. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, what about pre-show rituals or superstitions? Is there anything you always do before going on stage?
Yes, we always. We each have individual things, but I have become quite evangelical about vocal warm-ups because on this last tour, had my first vocal hemorrhage, and it was scary. And I'm very, very lucky that a wonderful vocal coach named Rob Stevenson had an intervention with me and helped me heal, but it required 2 weeks of complete silence. And I use something called a voice straw, which aids in something called vocal phonation, and it helps reduce inflammation of the vocal cords. And so I'm very religious. I drink about 3 liters of water, and I do these absurd sounding straw exercises that involve, it sounds sort of like a whale giving mating calls or something, but it's very good for your vocal cords. And I'm quite religious about it now because, of course, I want to be able to do this, until I drop dead on stage at 97 or something, hopefully,
You recently performed You're Not Alone with Brandi Carlile at the Americana Honours and Awards, which anyone can see on YouTube. When did you first meet Brandi?
We first met aboard a ship, actually, in the Caribbean Ocean. It was a little festival at sea called Cayamo. And my band, Birds of Chicago, had been, there was a sound check competition where, newer artists could throw their music into the hat, and the people that were going to the journey at sea Journey Through Song at Sea could vote, and we got voted onto this boat. And it's the only time we've ever been in anything like that, because I'm sort of allergic to the notion of music as like blood sport or competition. But we chose to enter this competition because we had dear friends that loved this festival so much and really wanted us to go. And the lineup was so incredible. It was Emmylou Harris and Lucinda Williams and John Prine and Brandi Carlile and all of these artists, Lyle Lovett, all these artists Steve Earle, that we really looked up to, and Mavis Staples. And it was just an incredible lineup. So we thought, well, if we have a chance of being part of that, we should give it a go. And we did indeed get voted onto the boat. And our daughter, Ida, was just turned 1 year old at that time. And Brandy's daughter, Evangeline, had just turned 6 months old. And so we met with our babies at one of the stops on this, festival at sea, on a beach with our babies. And that was the first time we met. And we've run into each other at different festivals over the years, the Edmonton Folk Festival and Calgary Folk Festival. And it really was in 2020 during the lockdown period. I decided, sort of on an intuition, I just had the intuition that maybe she would have advice for me. I really admire the way that she navigates her career and the way that she unites, art and activism and giving back to community through her Looking Out Foundation, and the way she uplifts other artists. And so I didn't even have a number for her. And I actually DM'd her Instagram, and her beautiful wife, Catherine, found my message and remembered us from that Te Amo festival. And I had sent them, an early mix of the Outside Child record, and they fell in love with the record. And so I got a call from Brandy the next day, and we just started talking, and it was, of course, it was during the lockdown period where we were all trying to figure out how to keep going as artists, as performing artists. And I ended up being part of, she was doing these live streams to raise money to help musicians in need, to help the Black Visions Collective during the horrible police violence towards Black folks in America in 2020. I mean, she was doing all these wonderful things, and I kind of joined in with those efforts. And she was the person that really helped me find a home for my music. She had the intuition to call Margie Chesky at Fantasy Records because she thought she would really get the Outside Child record, and indeed that was the case. And so really that acquaintanceship, which blossomed into friendship and chosen family, was life-changing for me and my family, because it really lifted us out of poverty and very, very few prospects during the lockdown period of the pandemic, and helped me find my label family and my publishing home as well. So I'm forever grateful to Brandy for so many things, but that she really made a tangible difference in my life and my child's life, and I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah. A lot has been written and celebrated about your 2021 album, Outside Child. You must have thought about many album titles. Why did you decide to call it Outside Child in the end?
Outside Child is a really resonant term for me in a lot of ways. I mean, I was, a Black child born to a teenage white mother in Quebec, in Montreal, Quebec, at a time when to be an unwed mother was considered shameful. To have a Black child, if you were white, was considered shameful. And, so we were on the fringes of society from the beginning. And I was born out of wedlock. And in Grenada, my biological father is Grenadian. And in the islands in Grenada, when you are born out of wedlock, they don't call you illegitimate, or a bastard. They call you an outside child. So when I met my Black family for the first time when I was 30 years old, and I went with the family to a big reunion, which happened to take place during Carnival in Grenada, in St. George. This would have been 2010, I guess. And everyone on the island called me, and my stepmother said, definitely don't kiss anybody. You're related to absolutely everybody on this island. I said, okay. And everyone called me my biological father's name is Michael George. And everyone, everywhere I went, said, oh, it's a George girl. It's Michael's outside child. And I was so touched because, as a child growing up in Montreal, there had been so much sort of rejection and racism and abuse within my adoptive family. My adoptive father was a white supremacist and an American expat who grew up in a sundown town, and it was not a happy childhood. And so there had been so much shame around being a so-called illegitimate child. Of course, no child is illegitimate, but that's what I was called in those days. And to be welcomed in Grenada and to have the term outside child feel welcoming and affectionate, it really resonated for me. And I had spent a period of my teenage years living outside because I was safer, sleeping on park benches and in the cemetery than I was in the home of the people who called themselves my family at that time, who were very abusive. So the name has a lot of resonance for me on a lot of levels. And that's why I chose to call that record Outside Child.
Yeah. Having told your childhood story in that album, is it difficult to know where to go with the next album? You have this empty canvas that you can paint anything upon.
I have so much to say always. And it's so thrilling that anyone cares to listen. It really, and I will never take it for granted. So I've actually just finished writing the last song for the next record. We'll be recording it in December with some wonderful people. It's still a secret, so I can't give it all away yet, but I'm very, very excited. And I'm digging into the, tearing joy from the teeth of turmoil in the present. And it's been really, really fun to write it. And it's a departure in some ways sonically. It's certainly more danceable, I would say, than Outside Child was. But there are still, I'm still me. I'm still the person I am with all my various lived experiences. And so, yeah, it will remain to listeners to decide what they think, if it's a fitting follow-up or not.
Yeah. You play many different instruments. What drew you to the banjo?
Kermit the Frog. If I'm honest, it was Kermit the Frog. My adoptive father was very tyrannical about music. We weren't really allowed to listen to any modern music. It was sort of anything post Johann Sebastian Bach sort of wasn't on, and we would get in quite severe trouble if we tried to listen to any popular music. But I was allowed to watch Sesame Street, and I was allowed to watch The Muppet Show, and of course Jim Henson imbued those shows and Fraggle Rock and The Storyteller with this incredible music, and that was really where my modern music education came from, were the Muppets, and that's just the truth. And so Kermit was the first being that I saw playing a banjo, and I fell in love with that sound, and not knowing, of course, the connection to the Black diaspora at that time. And so it has been this wonderful journey of learning. And then when I met my dear chosen sister, Rhiannon Giddens, I learned so much more about the history of the banjo and our particular connection to that instrument as Black women of the Black diaspora. And it's been just such a healing, beautiful journey. And that's one of my favorite projects that I've been part of, and that I continue to be part of. We just did a sold out show at Carnegie Hall a couple of weeks ago with Our Native Daughters, and that's Rhiannon Giddens and Amethyst Kia and Layla McCalla, and they're all such extraordinary artists, writers, people, mothers, with the exception of Amethyst, not a mom yet, but the rest of us are. And I'm so grateful for that sisterhood, and that's been a big part of this Outside Child journey as well. Those songs, the songs on Outside Child, I began writing actually on a tour with Our Native Daughters. We were on a bus with all 6 of the kids there's Rhiannon's 2, Layla's 3, and my 1 daughter, Ida, and a film crew from the Smithsonian. We were doing our first ever tour of a record that we'd made called Songs of Our Native Daughters for Smithsonian Folkways. This was back in 2019. And that's when I started writing the songs for Outside Child, was on that bus with all the babies and my chosen sisters and family around me. So they're very much a part of all of this journey.
Yeah, the last couple of years have been an incredible period for you with the album and the Juno Awards, Folk Music Awards, Grammy nominations, things that you probably don't expect, but you dream about maybe, and also affirmation of your talent. How are you taking all that in emotionally?
I don't think that I have emotionally processed it yet, other than, of course, I mean, and to be honest, it wasn't something I dreamed of. It wasn't even something I thought was possible for me. You know, it didn't even occur to me that kind of recognition of my peers and of music industry was possible. And nothing in my life prior to this had prepared me for it. So it's actually been quite overwhelming emotionally, but I'm so wildly grateful. And it has been the part that's the most gratifying is to, you know, to be sharing nominations and the whole journey with so many of my chosen musical family and really, you know, life community. You know, I was nominated right alongside Yola, right alongside Rhiannon Giddens, who won, you know, a Grammy for her beautiful record that she put out last year for the folk Grammy. You know, to be nominated alongside Aoife O'Donovan this year, and my dear brother Joe Henry, who has been a mentor of mine for many years, and who has opened so many doors and advocated for me and my partner JT and our family as well. And you know, to be nominated alongside Brandy Carlisle and Jason Isbell and just all these wonderful artists who have been so welcoming, not just to me, but to many of us in the Roots community who, you know, who with intersectional identities who weren't as well represented in the past. And what these other artists kind of opening doors is really what's changed the story for a lot of us. And you know, I think about folks like Brittany Spencer and Mickey Guyton and Yola and all of us and our native daughters. And Rhiannon really started that. I mean, she, with the Chocolate Drops, broke through in this incredible way. And then, of course, her solo career took off with the T-Bone Burnett record. And every time a door opened for her, she brought more of us through with her. And Brandy has done the same thing, and Jason Isbell is doing the same thing. And I'm trying to do the same thing now as well, you know, with who I curate in my show and on every, you know, anytime I get to do something at the Grammys or on TV, I'm always bringing my community with me. So I believe that is hopefully how this sort of inclusive rainbow coalition becomes a movement and not a moment.
Yeah. So what's the grand plan for Allison Russell?
The grand plan is to continue using my words in every possible way I can to reduce harm in the world, and of course follow my muse and feel connected to my community and grow that community. I think that's sort of my mission.
Yeah. Well, Allison, it's been wonderful to chat to you, and we look forward to seeing you in April next year.
I'm so much looking forward to it. It was lovely talking to you, Greg. Thank you for having me on your show.